year is 2001. The game is Red Faction. The man is Parker.
Parker.
Parker. Parker. Parker. Parker.
Parker. Parker.
Parker.
Parker.
Parker.
Yeah, well,
Plan?
threaten this.
Overthrow an evil corporation on Mars, free the miners, and get back to Earth. Sound awesome? Oh yes. Yes it was. Developed by Volition and published by THQ, rest in peace, Red Faction cast you in the boots of Parker, a man who somehow thought it would be a good idea to go to Mars in search of peace.
Came here 6 months ago thinking it would be an escape from Earth. I wanted some time to think, to figure out what to do with my life. A year in the Altor mine sounded like a great way to straighten myself out.
And that working in a mine would somehow be awesome. Initially released on PS2 and PC, it came out about a year after the PS2 was released. This didn't make the game a crapshoot or an otherwise terrible title. The game had a variety of awesome guns, locations to visit, voice acting, multiplayer, and a very cool feature that is worth mentioning. Dubbed Geomod, Geomod allowed the player to destroy and change their surroundings. This was in the later games to some extent, but not nearly in the way that it was in the first game. Not a lot of games in 2001 had destructible environments, and in 2013, going on 2014, there still aren't a lot of games that have destructible environments. Need some cover? Dig a hole with rockets. Door in the way? Go around it. Looking for a shortcut? Go for it. Just feel like blowing shit up? That's permissible as well. The game also had a host of weapons, ranging from standard weapons like pistols and shotguns, to the more interesting and destructible, such as the fusion rocket launcher and the railgun. In a few instances, you also got to pilot a submarine and a ship. All of this action took place in a variety of locales, starting in the mines, fighting your way through the barracks, diving through water, blasting your way through a mech with bad attitude, visiting a mutant petting zoo and seeing the lovely creatures there, and going into space.
The command center is up this shaft.
Unfortunately, later entries have been less than stellar. Playing as Alias, Red Faction 2 told a muddled story on Earth about nanotechnology developed in the first game by the villain K-Pek, being taken and repurposed by the evil Sopot on Earth. Even worse, Geomod is very limited in 2. Red Faction Guerrilla threw out Geomod almost entirely in favor of destructible buildings at the player could level. You played as Alec Mason, a forgettable, bumbling oaf with a sledgehammer. Guerrilla wasn't terrible, but it wasn't super great either.
Mining engineer. Demolitions Class C.
Following this game, down the shit slope came Red Faction Origins. As far as made-for-TV movies go, it wasn't the worst. Set between Guerrilla and Armageddon, it primarily follows Jake Mason. Visual effects aren't the worst, but in a series that was kind of floundering around following Guerrilla, it didn't really help a lot. Originally the movie was to be spun off into a sci-fi series if it did well, but the mismanagement and subsequent collapse of THQ has all but ensured this series will not happen. The most recent entry in the series, Red Faction Armageddon, introduced a whole lot of new things. Like its predecessor, it was a third-person action-adventure game, with some sci-fi elements. It introduced cultists and aliens. The first game had strange alien-like creatures, but Armageddon took it to a whole new level. Shooting was fun and had some really cool multiplayer elements, and some awesome weapons such as the magnet gun. Fire the first shot to link up, fire the second shot to create a collision. The game was more destructible than the last two, but terrain modification was limited. For now, the series is in the hands of Nordic Games, whose credits include the Alan Wake series and the Arcania franchise. With a spotty history of solid releases, it isn't easy to say whether or not Nordic Games will be able to pull off a solid reboot or sequel in the series. At this time, no new entries in the series have been announced. Red Faction was one of the first games that really wowed me when I picked it up as a kid on PlayStation 2. Solid frame rate, fast-paced action, lots of places to visit, destructible environments, and an overall enthralling experience drew me in. If you never played Red Faction, or maybe only played the later games, do yourself a favor and try out this gem.
It has made my work so much easier.
So do you remember it? Did you play Red Faction? What do you hope is in the future for the series? Leave some comments for us and let us know. This is Axiom with Good Time Gaming, reminding you to always have a good time gaming.
Parker.
Parker.